Good morning and welcome to the webinar on a complete overview of Zoho Meeting. Here's the agenda for today's session. Let me start with what we do at Zoho and why Zoho Meeting, followed by a quick differentiation between meeting and webinar. Then we'll see about a brief introduction about online meeting and webinar and how Zoho Meeting can be used as a video conferencing for webinars, followed by some of the features that we are currently working on. And then with the demonstration of a new version, I'll give you a complete walkthrough of Zoho Meeting. Finally, I'll wrap up the session with a roadmap to show you some of the upcoming features in online meeting and webinar solutions. In this slide, we'll get to know about why Zoho. We have been around for over 23 years now. Zoho is the unique and powerful suite of cloud applications that forms an operating system for your business. We have nearly 55 plus different applications that helps you to run your business. To quote a few, we have applications to manage sales and marketing, email and collaboration, HR and finance, and a lot more. We also do have applications where you can work remotely in this pandemic, in which Zoho Meeting is one of those. There are over 50 million users around the world using Zoho for their business. So now, to give you an introduction to Zoho Meeting, we are in the web conferencing market for about 12 years now. This is a robust web conferencing solution built to manage both your online meetings and webinar requirements. We have moved to WebRTC technology to host the session right from your browser. So there will be no hassles of downloading any applications for both presenter and participants. We often get questions like when to host which session. Online meeting is a collaborator session where you can discuss with your known participants like your clients, teammates, sales group, or internal projects teams who are all located in different regions. On the other hand, webinar is like organizing a seminar or an informative session to engage your global audience. You can use our webinar platform to spread awareness, conduct online classes for your schools and colleges, and employee onboarding session for your company. You can also market your products and services by giving a live demo of your app or a product that you have launched. Now, we'll see about a brief introduction about our online meeting software. Zoho Meeting is the best online meeting solution you can rely on. You can host online meetings with real-time audio, video, and screen sharing. You can initiate or join meetings from anywhere and collaborate effectively with the moderator controls. To keep the track of your meetings, we have features such as RSVP, reminders, and add to calendars. For easy collaboration, we have in-session chat features to send messages to everyone in your meeting. You can use your computer's built-in microphone and speakers, or you can join the meetings on the go over your phone from any part of the world. Here, we are providing dial-in numbers for more than 40 countries and toll-free numbers for more than 25 countries around the world. So this will let your participants to join for free using their phones. You can also express your ideas better by video conferencing with participants from your video source of choice. Share screen. You can share your entire screen or just a particular application with everyone in the meeting. You can embed the meeting link onto your organization's website so you can let anyone who visits your website to join the meeting with a click. You can record your meetings to watch them online later, and also you can share the recordings with anyone, or else you can download the same to your computer. Now, we see a brief introduction about our webinar software. Once you schedule your webinar, you can generate the leads by posting the registration link onto your website, blog, and social media. Adding events to the calendar and sending email reminders will help to boost the attendance rate for your webinar. During your webinar, you can broadcast your presentation using screen sharing, audio, and video options. You can engage the leads throughout the session using polling and Q&A features. Similar to meeting, all the webinars can be recorded so that the missed attendees can view it at their own pace. We do have webinar analytics feature, which will help you to see the progress of your webinar immediately and helps you to find out the valid leads out of it. These are all the latest updates which were launched recently in Zoho Meeting. We have introduced multiple video feeds for webinar where the organizer and co-organizer's video feed will be broadcasted. We have launched desktop app for Linux OS and the auto updater, which detects the new version and install the same into your system automatically. We have also introduced the integration with other Zoho products such as Zoho Sprints, Zoho Mail, and Zoho Backstage. Now that we have understood how Zoho Meeting can be used as a video conferencing tool, now let's see about the overview of Zoho Meeting. This is the home screen of Zoho Meeting. To schedule a meeting or a webinar, you can log on to meeting.zoho.com, or if you have a Zoho Meeting desktop application installed on your computer, you can schedule through your desktop app as well. In the home page, you can see Meet Now, Schedule Meeting, and Schedule Webinar to get a quick access to your online meetings and webinars. Whenever quick decisions are needed, you can conduct instant meetings from anywhere using the Meet Now button. Here, you can easily distinguish which type of conferencing you want to host. You can now start audio-only meetings by using the audio conferencing option under Meet Now. Or if you'd like to schedule an upcoming meeting or a webinar in advance, you can go for Schedule a Meeting and Schedule a Webinar button. Now we move on to My Meetings tab. Here you can see the upcoming meetings, which list the details of the meeting scheduled in advance. Past meeting contains the details of the meeting which were already conducted. You can also see the Meet Now and Schedule Meeting button on My Meetings tab as well. If you have a bulk volume of meetings, you can use the search bar to retrieve the respective meeting that you're looking for. You can also sort the list either by ascending or descending with respect to the start time of the meeting and the topic of the meeting. Now, let me show you how to schedule a meeting. So when you click on the Schedule Meeting button, you will be redirected to the scheduling page. So here you can give a suitable topic in the title. Along with the detailed description in the agenda. You can choose the date and time when you want to conduct your meeting. And in the end time, you can set up a rough estimate for your invitees to know how long your session will be hosted. Moreover, the session will not be timed out if you exceed the duration you enter here. You can use the time zone field to choose the time zone of your location using the drop-down option provided over here. Presenter field. By default, you will be the presenter of the meetings you schedule. You can also use the drop-down option to assign the presenter role to other members in your organization. Participants field. In the participants field, you can click on Add to select and invite members on your contact list. Here, you can also upload your contacts in contacts.zoho.com to select them as a participants in the online meetings you schedule. So in future, whenever you schedule the meetings, these contacts will be auto-suggested on the participants field, as you can see. So all you need to do is just select the participants. Moreover, you can also invite the external contacts by just entering the email address right through this box. Once you have selected your participants, you can click on Done. Once the meeting is scheduled, these listed participants will be receiving an email invite along with a join button in it. All they need to do is at the time of the meeting, they need to click on the join button to join your online meeting. Now, let me show you a sample invite here. The email invitations you sent out to your participants will have an RSVP section. So through this, you can know how many members will be joining a meeting before you begin it. Invitees can click on any of the three options, yes, maybe, or no. So you will receive the response emails based on the options they choose. Now coming back to the scheduling page, you can also create recurring meetings to make the meeting happen on multiple occurrences. To create one, you can click on the repeat, which takes you to the repeat form. So all you need to do is to select the frequency of your meeting in the repeat type field, so which could be daily, weekly, or monthly. You can specify when and how your meeting should repeat and when it should end. So once selected, you can click on Done. You have an option to set the email reminders, like how long before you want to send out the reminder emails. Moreover, you can also use the drop-down option to set multiple email reminders for this meeting. Now we move on to audio conferencing. Zoho Meeting provides Zoho Conference, where you will be given an option to select computer audio or phone audio at the time of starting the meeting. My Own Conference. My Own Conference is nothing but if you have any Office extension or if you want your participants to contact your mobile number directly, you can make use of this option. So whatever the details you provide over here, that will be sent along with the meeting invite to the invitees. Now let me show you how it works. So when you hit the save button, this takes you to the meeting details page, where you can see the details of the presenter, topic of the meeting, and the invited participants over here. Now let's see about how a participant can join your meeting. There are actually 3 different ways for a participant to join your session. If you don't remember the email address of a participant while scheduling a meeting, don't worry, we have provided you an option. You can ask your participants to go meet.zoho.com and ask them to enter the meeting key provided over here. This is actually a unique key generated for this respective meeting. With this meeting key, they can join the meetings from the web browsers like Chrome or Firefox. Now the second way. It's actually a simplest way where you can copy this link and share it from your personal email or messaging apps. Now the third way, where the invited participants can use the invitation email along with a join meeting button in it. So they can click on this button to join your session at the scheduled time. Now coming back to the meeting details page, here at the right side, you can see the edit button. So where you can reschedule the meeting to postpone the session or do any modifications like inviting more participants as well. Or unfortunately, if you're not available throughout the day to conduct your scheduled meeting, you can go for canceling the meeting using the delete option. On these modifications like rescheduling and cancellation, the participants will receive a notifying email about these changes. By default, all the meetings you schedule will be automatically saved on your email calendar whenever you receive the email invite, so that you will get the email reminders and start the session right from your calendar. Besides, you can also use the Add to Calendar option to download the ICS file. So you can import the downloaded file to your preferable calendars. Embed option. You can also embed your meeting link onto your organization website so that you can let anyone who visits your website to join the meeting with a click. Once done with the scheduling, you can either start the meeting from the meeting portal using the Start Meeting button, or else you can use the presenter invite that you have received whenever the meeting is scheduled. Now, let me show you how to start the meeting. So when you hit the Start Meeting button, you will be landed on the meeting window. So here you can see there are 2 different options. Either you can start the session using the phone audio or computer audio option. If you want to overcome the poor internet, you can join the session using the phone audio. You can select the respective country along with the access code. Or else you can go for the second option, which is to start the session using the computer audio. So which allows you to choose the computer microphone and the video camera on. So if you're hosting a video webinar, you can enable the video camera on and you can start the session. And this is how the presenter screen will look like.
Welcome. Muted.
If you'd like to invite more participants on your ongoing session, you can either enter the email address of a participant over here. So they will get an email invite to join your session. Or else you can simply copy this link from here and share it with them. Now, let me show you how a participant can join your session. I've copied this link and I'm going to join as a participant for this respective meeting. And you can see the participants will also have the same phone audio or computer audio option to join the session. So they can join the session as per their choice. And this is how a participant screen will look like.
Welcome. Muted, unmuted, muted.
Now coming back to the presenter screen, on the top menu bar, you will be provided with a list of tools and tabs with its respective features. Attendees tab. Through this tab, you can see the list of participant names, those who have joined the session. Whenever a new participant has joined the session, there will be a red indication on the attendees tool, as you can see. You can either invite a participant from the presenter screen, or else you can click on the invite button from the attendees tab to invite the participants on your ongoing session. If you have a bulk volume of participants, you can use the search option to retrieve the respective participant that you're looking for. You can also sort the list either by ascending or descending with respect to the participant name as well as with their joined time. You can use the filter icon to easily categorize the attendees with respect to the type of audio, so which is the computer audio or phone audio, as well as with the device type which they have used to join the session. With the more actions provided next to each listing, you will have moderator controls. So the first one would be give control. This option is to let anyone take control of your screen to point out something or illustrate a solution when you do a screen share. So this is completely like a remote access. So the second option is remove attendees. So where you can remove the participants when they are no longer part of your discussion. For example, let's say if you're a manager hosting a team meeting with your team members, team leaders, and SMEs, if you don't want to continue the meeting with your team members, you can remove them using this option and continue the team meeting only with your team leaders. You can use the mute icon to mute an individual participant, or else you can use the mute all button to mute all your participants to maintain a noise-free session in a single click. Similarly, you can unmute them. Now we move on to the next tab where you can have a collaborative communication among the participants using this public chat. Similar way, the participants will also have an option to chat with the other participants as well as with the presenter. Now we come back to the presenter screen and let's move on to the next tab, settings. So under settings, you can easily change the microphone or camera device using the change option. So during the ongoing session, you can use this particular option to change your devices. And you can see there are other preferences listed over here where you can enable or disable according to your choice. Let's see about conserve bandwidth. You can enable the conserve bandwidth option to have a good audio quality even during a poor internet connection. Play entry or exit notification sound. You will be notified whenever a participant joins or leaves the session. Play chat notification sound. Now, both the presenter and the participants will be notified whenever a new message got landed on the chat window. Unmute or screen share control. With these options, as a host, now you will have the complete control on mute and screen sharing. Network. You can now check the network speed and its performance within the session itself. Start sharing. Screen sharing is an essential part of collaborating during the online meetings. Anyone in a meeting can share their screen with other participants. To make your whole screen visible to others, you can go for entire screen, or if you'd like to share a specific application, you can go for application window and share an application. Similar way, the participants will also have an option to share their screen with others, but they need an approval from the presenter before they share the screen. And you can see the screen. This particular participant has been notified that waiting for the host approval. Now, when we come back to the presenter screen, the presenter will be receiving a pop-up in order to allow or cancel the request. So that particular participant can share the screen only when the presenter approves the request. Lock meeting. Lock meeting is one of the moderator controls provided within the session. In order to conduct a secure online meetings and to minimize the interruptions, you can use the lock meeting feature. Through this, you can make your meetings more confidential to keep them secure from unexpected attendees. You will be notified when someone tries to enter your meeting, so you can let them in only if you want to. Now, let me show you how exactly the lock meeting feature will work. So after I have enabled the lock meeting, and I'm going to join as another participant for this respective meeting. And you can see the screen. This particular participant has been notified that meeting is locked and waiting for an approval. Now, when we come back to the presenter screen, the presenter will be receiving a pop-up in order to accept or reject the entry. Participants will not be able to join the session, even though if they have the join link. Once the participants gets approval from the presenter, then only they can join the session. So you can also use this lock meeting option as a waiting room concept for your meeting. Start recording. You can record all your meetings to watch them online later, and also you can share it with the members who couldn't attend your meeting. When you start recording the session, the participants will be now notified with a recording in progress message due to privacy reasons. So when you're done with the recording, you can click on stop recording the session. Using this microphone and camera buttons, you can have an access to control your audio and video settings by muting or unmuting them. Now, you can easily track the duration about how long the session is being hosted using the session timer displayed on the meeting window. Full screen. You can enable the full screen option to maximize the screen when you do a screen share. Exit. Once you have done with the meeting, you can click on exit button to end the meeting for all of your participants. At the end, the chat communication done during the session can be downloaded using the download chat now option. And also, now you can see the total duration of the meeting to get to know how long the session was hosted. As of now, we saw on how to schedule and host an online meeting. And now we move on to the next topic on how to schedule the webinars using our platform. So when you click on My Webinars tab, here you can see the list of upcoming webinars, past webinars, and analytics from where you will get the webinar reports. We see this topic later. Now we'll see about how to schedule a webinar. So this is the scheduling page. So here you can give a suitable title for your webinar and a brief explanation of the major points that you will cover in the description. You can select the date and time when you want your webinar to be organized. In the duration, you can set up a rough estimate for your attendees to know how long your session will be organized. Moreover, the session will not be timed out if you exceed the duration you enter here. You will also have an option to create a recurring webinars to make the webinar happen on multiple occurrences. To create a recurring webinar, you can select the frequency of your webinar in the repeat type field, so which could be once, daily, weekly, or monthly. You can specify when and how your webinar should repeat and when it should end. So once done with the scheduling, you can click on Save. So this takes you to the webinar details page. So here you can see the complete details about the organizer, topic of the webinar, and the description. Similar to meeting, you can reschedule the webinar using the edit webinar option and cancel the webinar if you're not able to organize it on the scheduled time. On these modifications, attendees of the webinar will be receiving the notification emails accordingly. You can also add the events to your preferable calendars using the Add to My Calendar option. So this actually downloads an ICS file and you can import it to the respective calendar of your choice. And now we move on to the registration part. So where you can see the registration link, which can be sent out to your target audience via email, social media, and blogs. You can also drive the webinar registrations by embedding the registration form on web pages and blogs, so that the people who visits your page will know about your webinar and they will register for it. Anyone who registers for your webinar will receive a registration confirmation email with a join webinar button in it, so they can join your session at the scheduled time. Now, let me walk you through how a registrant can register for your webinar. So I have copied this link and I'm going to register for this webinar as a registrant. And this is how the registration form will look like. Once registered for the webinar, the page looked like this. Registrants can join the webinar on this page using the Join Webinar option, or else they can join the webinar using the Join Webinar button provided on the confirmation email. So this is how a registration confirmation email will look like. Now we come back to the registration page. They can also add the events to their preferable calendars using the options provided on the same page. So if they don't have Google Calendar or Yahoo Calendar, they can also use this download ICS file option. So that ICS file will be downloaded and they can import it to the respective calendar of their choice. If they need any clarification, they can contact the organizer of the webinar with the email address displayed at the bottom. Now we come back to the webinar details page. Let's talk about customizing the registration form. You can also customize the registration form using this particular option. By default, name and email address will be the mandatory option on the form. You can also rename these two fields using the settings tool provided over here. So instead of name, if you'd like to reflect it as the first name, you can make the changes over here and click on done. Besides, you can drag and drop the predefined fields provided at the left side. You can also add customizable fields and questions to your webinar registration form to gather the information you need from your attendees. Once done with the customization, you can click on Save to save all the modifications. Now we move on to registration settings. So where you can actually use this feature to qualify and bring the right audience to your webinar. By default, this particular settings will remain in automatic approve. So where the attendees will get the join link right after the webinar registration. Manually approve. On this particular option, you can filter the webinar registrants by accepting or declining their registrations. So the organizer must approve the registrants before they join the webinar. Now, let me show you a sample on how exactly the manually approve will work. So after I have enabled the manually approve, and I'm going to register for this webinar as a registrant. And now you can see the difference between these two pages on how exactly the automatic approve and manually approve pages looking like. This particular register needs to wait for the organizer to confirm the registration first. Until then, this registrant will not be getting the join link and the confirmation email to join the webinar. Now, when we come back to the My Webinar Details page, let's talk about managing the registrations. You can click on the Manage option to keep the track of the registrations before your webinar starts. On the Pending tab, you can see the list of the registrants whose registration status has to be approved or denied. Approved tab contains a list of the registrants whose registration status has been already accepted. If you have any last minute change, if you don't want any approved registrant to turn up for your webinar, you can cancel the registration before the webinar starts. So even though if they have the join link, they will not be able to join your webinar. You can also click on the total count next to the total registrations to see the list of all registrants before your webinar. For example, if any of the registrant has mistakenly deleted the confirmation email, you can get the copy join link from here and share it with them. If you want to get the complete list in a CSV file, you can click on the Export as CSV option to get the list. Now, let's talk about adding co-organizers to your webinar. While hosting a webinar, you can lighten your load by adding co-organizers to the session. So they will be acting like as a panelist during the session. You can add as much co-organizers to your webinar, and they need not to have a Zoho Meeting account for it. They can launch the webinars and also use some of the controls during the webinar, just like the organizer. Now, let me show you how to add a co-organizer. Once you have added a co-organizer, he or she will receive an email invite with a unique link to join the webinar. Let me show you a sample. So this is how an invitation of a co-organizer will look like. So they can join the webinar using this particular button. Now coming back to the co-organizer screen, you can also resend the invitation email and also get the copy join links from here provided for each added co-organizer. If you want to remove any added co-organizer before the session, you can remove them using this particular remove option. So what co-organizers will do? Co-organizers can co-host the presentation, answer the questions from the attendees, launch the polls, record webinars, and enable an attendee to speak during the webinar. Let's move on to polls. To keep the attendees engaged during the session, you can create the polls and launch the same during the session. Let me show you a sample by creating a one. You will have two types of polls using our platform. Multiple choice. You can use the multiple choice poll to let your audience to choose from a set of answers. Or you can go for star rating poll to let your audience indicate how much they like a feature, product, session, etc. You can also create another polls depending upon your requirement. If you'd like to make any changes on the poll that you have already created, you can use the edit option to edit the poll. And also you can delete them. And now we move on to the email section. So where you can now customize the email templates for the different types of emails sent to your audience during the entire course of your webinar. So when you click on the customize email, you will be taken to the email customization page. So here you can select the webinar email type that you want to customize the emails for. For example, if you'd like to customize the registration confirmation email, you can make the changes over here. You can either create the email template on your own, or else you can use the predefined templates which we provide over here. Now we come back to the My Webinar Details page. You can also have the email reminders, like how long before the email reminders has to be sent. You will also have an option to set multiple email reminders where you can configure them by enabling or disabling it. And also, you can customize the thank you emails by configure them where you can include the recording of your webinar. So if you enable this, along with the thank you email, your recording of the session will be sent. Moving on to the post attendee URL, here you can redirect your webinar attendees to your website at the end of your webinar. So you can encourage them by signing up for your product, show them about the offers, or provide ratings and feedback. All you need to do is just enable this and enter the URL over here where you want to direct your attendees post your webinar. So this completely acts like a landing page. So once you have done, you can click on save. So after completing the scheduling part, you can start the webinar on the schedule time from the webinar details page. So when you click on the start button, you will be landed on the webinar window. Similar to meeting, you will be provided with two different options. If you have the low internet, you can go for phone audio to start the session using the dial-in numbers given for the respective countries along with the access code. Or else you can go for computer audio options, which will allow you to choose the computer microphone and the video camera on. So if you want to host a video webinar, you can enable this option and you can start the session. And this is how the organizer screen will look like.
Welcome.
Now let me show you how a registrant can join the webinar. By default, the attendees of the webinar will join the session only in listen and view only mode. And this is how an attendee screen will look like.
Welcome.
Now we come back to the organizer screen. Whenever an attendee has joined the session, the organizer will be notified with a red indication on the Attendees tab. You can also invite an attendee from the Attendees tab on your ongoing session. So here you can enter the email ID of the registrant who will receive the registration link to register for your webinar first. And then with a confirmation email, they can join the session. Or else you can simply copy this link and share it with them. Through the Attendees tab, you can see the list of all attendees, those who have joined the session. And you can also see the more actions provided next to each listing. So first one would be allow to talk. For an instance, let's say if an attendee wants to share their questions or thoughts with everyone in a webinar, the organizer can grant permission using allow to talk. Besides, the attendees of the webinar can also use the raise hand feature as a signal to get the organizer's attention, just like a physical classroom. Now you see the organizer screen. There will be a hand icon next to the attendee who has used that particular option. Moreover, you can also let an attendee to communicate during the session by sharing their screen with everyone. So for this, you need to make them as a presenter using Make Presenter option. So once you have made that particular attendee as a presenter, the controls will be transferred to them and they can share their screen, their webcam, and they can talk during the session. Start sharing. Using the screen share, you can deliver the presentation and demo about the topic you're organizing. To share your screen, you can click on Start Sharing option to either share your entire screen or just a specific application as per your choice. Q&A tab. Webinar attendees can ask questions throughout the session using the Q&A tab. So once the webinar attendee has asked any question, the organizer and co-organizer can view the attendee's questions on their Q&A tab. So they can answer the questions privately to the attendee who has asked the question, or else they can make it as public and share the information to all the attendees using the answer to all option. As an organizer, you can also use the broadcast message feature as an option to send useful links, text, or email address to the webinar attendees. So this broadcast message feature is actually a one-way communication from the organizer to the attendees. If still the attendees have some queries, they can use the Q&A tab to clarify their concerns. If you have a bulk volume of questions, you can also enable the toggle of Show Unanswered Questions to easily categorize the questions which has been left unanswered. Polls. In order to get a valuable insights from your audience, you can either create the instant polls using the Create Poll option, or else you can launch the polls using the Start Poll option, which you have created before your webinar. Now, let me show you how to launch the polls. So whenever you have launched the polls, there will be a pop-up on the attendee screen in order to respond to the polls. So attendees can respond to the polls and the organizer can view the results instantly on their screen. They can also have an option to show the results to the attendees. Start recording. You can record the webinar and send it to anyone who couldn't attend your webinar. If you're organizing the webinar as a sales group, you can share the webinar recording as a product demo or helpful video for new users. Full screen. You can enable the full screen mode to maximize the screen when you do a screen share. As the organizer, you can have an access to control your audio and video settings where you can mute or unmute them. Whenever you detect a poor internet connection on your ongoing session, you can switch to phone audio option using this switch to phone option. Exit. Once you have done with the webinar, you can click on exit button to end the webinar for all of your attendees.
Goodbye.
Now coming back to My Webinars tab, once your webinar is over, you will get a detailed analytical report on registrations, attendance data, engagement such as poll results, and the Q&A. For an instance, let me show you a sample report here. So this is how the webinar analytics page will look like. Registrants tab. This tab contains a list of the registrants who have registered for your webinar, the registered time, the registration status, whether it has been pending or accepted, and whether they have attended the webinar or not. So through this, you can easily calculate the attendance data for your webinar. Attendees tab. Attendees tab contains a list of the attendees, those who have joined the session, their joined time, the duration on how long they have been in the session, the polls responded by them, and the questions asked by them. Polls contains a list of polls which you have launched during the session and the results given by the attendees. Q&A contains a list of questions asked during the session and the answers given by the organizer and co-organizer. Generate report. You can also download a consolidated report of registrants and the attendees with respect to their email address, type of registration, country, and their participation status. You can either download the reports as XLS or CSV files. Now we move on to the next tab, My Recordings. So which actually contains a list of all the session recordings of meeting and webinar. Through this, you can revisit any type of the topic that you have discussed during a meeting or a webinar. You can store the recordings on the cloud permanently. To be precise, you can replay the recordings using the play option. And also, you can share the recording links with the members who couldn't make it to your meeting. You can also use the download option to download the recording to save it in an MP4 format for offline use. If you'd like to delete the recordings to save the space, you can click on the delete icon provided next to each listings. Now we step on to the last tab, Settings. Under My Settings, you can set up the local information such as the time zone of your location by making it as a default option for the future meetings you schedule. Moreover, we provide multi-language support system, which is an essential part to avoid the language barriers. We provide an option to choose the preferred languages using the drop-down option of your Zoho Meeting account. You can also sync the meetings or webinars to your Google Calendar. If you have the Gmail account, on enabling the Google Calendar, you can add the events to your Google Calendar automatically. Manage organization. Under Manage Organization option, you can promote your branding by adding your company name and logo to the email headers of invitations and reminders. Similarly, you can add your company name and the logo to your registration forms to represent your branding. Next to co-branding, we will have the meetings and webinar settings where you can either allow or restrict the video meetings for all the members in your organization. You can also see the list of other webinar related settings provided, so which you can set the email updates for every registration you get. You can also send the reminder emails to all registrants before your webinar starts. Similarly, you can send thank you emails to all attendees after your webinar. So depending upon your choice, you can either enable or disable it. User management. Under user management, you can manage all the users and their respective profiles. And also, you can add or remove any members from your organization. Through this tab, you can designate the roles of each user as well to maintain your organization hierarchy. Emails. Under email section, you can add reply to email address to which the registrants can reply to clarify their concerns. The reply to email address can be of a team, department, or members in your organization who can answer the queries instantly. So this makes the process so simple by handing over the job to your team members. Under subscription, you will get the current subscription details and you can manage the same. Through this, now you can easily see when will be your next renewal date. Now moving on to integrations, Zoho Meeting provides integration with other Zoho products such as CRM, bookings, campaigns, mail, backstage, projects, and sprints. CRM. We have meeting integration and webinar integration with CRM, where you can push the webinar registrants as leads or contacts onto your CRM account. Bookings. You can integrate online meeting integration with Zoho Bookings, where you can share the booking links with your clients to let them book appointments with you at their convenience. Campaigns. With the webinar integration in Zoho Campaigns, you can engage the leads before and after webinar by sending out the email campaigns. Mail. With the online meeting integration with Zoho Mail, now you can schedule and host online meetings directly from your inbox. Zoho Backstage. This webinar integration with Zoho Backstage lets you to conduct the online events using Zoho Meeting as a webcasting service from your Backstage account. Projects. The online meeting integration in Zoho Projects allows you to conduct the instant online meetings with your team members to collaborate on the task related to a project that you're working on. Sprints. The online meeting integration with Zoho Sprints allows you to set up the virtual live meetings with your team members to discuss about the work progress and its status. Moving back to the home page, so here you can see the bottom where you can download the desktop application right from this page. Through the desktop app, you can overcome the browser limitation and enjoy the session with better stability and optimization. You can also use the Zoho Meeting mobile app to hold meetings, attend live webinars, participate in polls, make video calls, and much more. All this can be done from the mobile device using the Zoho Meeting mobile application. We also have Zoho Meeting extensions. Since I'm using the meeting portal via Chrome browser, Chrome extension is being displayed. Similarly, we have Firefox extension as well. Through this, you can add or app extensions to your Chrome and Firefox browser to start and join meetings easily. So there are some of the features which are being currently handled in our upcoming update. Custom domain, where you can have a unique branded name on the URL that identifies your website. Outlook plugin. So this reflects the meeting on the meeting portal scheduled from your Outlook. Always on top. The concept of making the webinar control tools and the video feed to be floated on the shared screen. Live streaming. The option to stream the ongoing webinar on the social media sites like YouTube and Facebook. Click integration. We are also working on with the Zoho Click to have an integration with Zoho Meeting. All right, so that brings us to the end of the webinar today.